After the premiere of The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, fans were more than eager to see more of the saga and find out many of the answers to the unresolved questions. Join us as we reflect on the magical days between Empire and Jedi, along with the excitement surrounding the release of the last part of the original Star Wars trilogy in May of 1983.
Once The Empire Strikes Back came out, it was incredible because they did it again, and then you say it's never gonna be the same. I mean, the sequel's never as good as the first one, and it was. It was a movie I think we all needed at that time. It was so fun and exciting, such a fun movie. It was a saga. Later on, I realized why it really it connected with me.
Empire came out at a time when I was just becoming a teenager. When you're at your peak of learning, of becoming who you're meant to be. And that is the theme which resonates within the film. Luke's in the middle of this journey, his adventure that he's on, and it's sort of the equivalent of being in his teens.
At that time, that's all I lived, breathed Star Wars. I had all the toys. I had Millennium Falcon, that's all I had the trading cards for Empire Strikes Back. I collected so many of those.
At the time when Empire came out, they had these plastic lightsabers that had like a wind kind of connection on the end. So when you waved them, there was this wind sound. And I have two of them. And so it was just, they did what they could.
I mean, that was when I was fully invested. That's all I thought about was what was going to happen. It was all the wondering about, how is everything going to get connected? A lot of thoughts about what Jedi was going to be, what direction was it going to go in? Were we going to see more Jedis? Were we going to get more history? Were we going to do more stuff with Yoda? But we spent most of our time looking forward to seeing Revenge of the Jedi, because all the posters were Revenge of the Jedi.
Revenge of the Jedi. It was all we kept thinking about from 1980 through 1982.
Revenge of the Jedi.
It was the Revenge of the Jedi.
Revenge of the Jedi. Who were the Jedi that were going to get revenge? In 1981, NPR Radio had developed a radio series based on the original Star Wars movies, which told the story completely through the sound.
Yeah, you were always number one around here, Biggs. You were the one who made things happen.
Yeah, it's a big galaxy, Luke.
I never cared about NPR until I heard that. And then that was when, like an hour before, I was in my mom's room. She had the nice stereo, and Mom's like, "What are you doing in here?" I said, "Hey, Star Wars radio plays coming on in an hour. Just leave me alone. I got to listen to it."
It was the 80s, and even though there was plenty of things to watch on TV, so many of us were hooked on listening to this on the radio for 13 weeks. And it helped that the show featured additional scenes that had originally been cut out. I mean, we got to hear Biggs.
And I loved it because we knew that the Biggs and wormy scenes and all that were filmed, but the radio play, you got to see that and hear that. And it was just, it was really something. They really dove in deep to kind of the side edges of scenes that we, became used to.
In June, Raiders of the Lost Ark opened, but that's another story for another time. By 1982, even though I was on the verge of becoming an adult, I still caught Star Wars and Empire all the time at the movie theaters, wherever they were playing.
Star Wars. It's the most popular movie in history. The one people enjoy over and over. And now it can be yours. Star Wars. Now it can be playing on an RCA video disc player on your TV tonight.
In the fall of 82, I stumbled upon a great new deal, the video disc player. It wasn't a VCR. The RCA video disc was this disc that was enclosed in a sleeve, which you inserted into a player and it would play the movie. And at that time, the VCR version of Star Wars, the videotape, was prohibitively expensive. I don't even think it was available to buy. I think it was only something that you were able to rent at the time. And so along came this RCA video disc that I could actually buy. I think the movie itself cost maybe $30, but if you bought it during this promotion, you could get Star Wars free, and you had to send away for it, which I did.
If you buy a player now starting at just $2.99, RCA will give you Star Wars free. That's right, free. But hurry, offer ends soon.
And after that, I mean, there were Star Wars watchings at my house constantly. Friends would come over. We watched it over and over. Everybody would come over and we'd watch Star Wars. We'd watch all these other movies, but I would say Star Wars and Grease was the other one that were big hits at my house.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
In 1982, we got our first glimpse, perhaps our only glimpse, at the movie then known as Revenge of the Jedi.
Revenge of the Jedi. Coming next summer to a theater in your galaxy.
There was so many theories thrown around at the time between Empire and Revenge of the Jedi. I mean, the title seemed to indicate that all of the old Jedi were going to collect themselves together and come and fight the Empire as a whole, like the spirits of it. There was a movie I saw in school that featured that, where the spirits of dead soldiers rose from the grave. Who was the Emperor? Was he a clone of Ben Kenobi? Was Luke Skywalker really related to Darth Vader? It was such an exciting time. And again, like the previous time, anything could have happened. We had no idea where the story was going to go.
And I remember when I went in to go to the college where I eventually went, I walked into the film and TV area, and I looked on the wall, and it was the Revenge of the Jedi bowled out from the Hollywood Reporter. And first thing out of my mouth, can I have that? I was, well, we're gonna leave it up a while. I said, no, you didn't hear my question. I don't care if it's up 2 months, 2 years. Can I have it? So it was an epiphany. It's I guess I'm going here to college.
Everybody that year in school, right before Jedi, was inspired by Star Wars. Everybody wanted to work on one. Everybody wanted to make a new one. Everybody thought that Star Wars was the target that you wanted to achieve in film school. And even though we kind of felt at the time that Revenge of the Jedi was going to be the last of these movies, somehow we imagined that maybe we'll get a chance to work on something like that in the future. The future was about to change, along with the title of the movie, which we had been anticipating.
Return to a galaxy far, far away. Return of the Jedi.
In early 1983, Revenge of the Jedi became known as Return of the Jedi. The exciting new trailer heightened expectation for what was soon to be the conclusion of the original Star Wars saga.
Return of the Jedi begins May 25th at a theater in your galaxy.
Once again, a couple of weeks before the movie came out, I got my hands on the Marvel Comics adaptation of the new movie called Return of the Jedi. Actually, one of my classmates picked it up for me, and when he was bringing it to me, I was so cautious about anybody seeing it that I said, don't give it to me in class, give it to me in the lunchroom. To which he turned to me and said, do you want me to pass it to you under the table? It was that secretive.
A new movie, the third in the Star Wars series, opens on Wednesday. And when it opens in Hollywood, some will have been waiting in line for more than a week.
I desperately wanted to catch Jedi on opening day, but that would require standing in line overnight in Manhattan, in the middle of Times Square, and it just was not something that was feasible then.
Yeah, funny story about that is I was moving furniture at the time. My grandmother owned a moving company. And so the opening night, I was on this overnight trip up north in Northern California, moving this furniture. And so we had this moving truck full of furniture. And so I told the guy in charge, I said, look, I'll move anything all day. It doesn't matter. But I am going to go see Return of the Jedi on opening night. I don't care where we go. It doesn't matter if I have to walk. It just doesn't matter. And so he was kind of like, okay. And so he dropped me off at the theater. I saw it. And so he was waiting outside in the moving truck after the movie was over. And the local news was there. I didn't get interviewed on camera, but I knew this was a big deal.
Well, since I couldn't stay overnight, Mark had said he was going to wait online as long as it took until the next day to see the film. And so he got there at about maybe 6 or 7 in the evening. I don't really remember, but I know he got there on the evening of the 24th really early.
It's finally here. The Return of the Jedi, Part 3 of the Star Wars film phenomenon, which will open nationally tomorrow.
After showing up at 6 a.m. in the morning, thinking that was super early for a movie 4 hours later for Empire Strikes Back, we had now graduated to appearing and waiting online at the theater the day before the movies opened. So I was there at 4:30 in the afternoon. I think it was only Channel 4 showed up with a news crew to film us in front of Lowe's Astor Plaza. Day turned to night. Now bear in mind, this is May 24th, 1983. That was the 100th anniversary celebration of the Brooklyn Bridge. So we were on 44th Street, and all the way down in Lower Manhattan in Brooklyn, they were gearing up for this monster fireworks show. There we were the night before, and it was around 7:30, and this fellow comes to the line, this guy, and starts talking to everybody, and he finally gets to me, and he says, "Listen, how many times did you see the original Star Wars?" And I simply, very quickly blurted out, "I saw it 53 times." And he looked, he says, "There's no way that you made up that number." He says, "How would you like to see do you want to see Return of the Jedi?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course." He said, "I work for a corporation that's affiliated with 20th Century Fox. Do you want to see it?" I turned around, I looked at everybody online, I said, "See you guys." I looked over the barricade and off I went. I got to see it before every other average Star Wars fan did.
I was supposed to meet with him at 6:30 the next morning. But at about 5 o'clock in the morning, I received a call from him, and he was very joyous about some news that he had, that he actually had the opportunity to have been let in to see the movie early before everyone else.
"I'm up all night. I saw it before everybody." The drawback was maybe a third of that audience was interested in actually seeing the movie. So I didn't get the reaction.
Star Wars fans have been waiting for. The Force is with us again. Return of the Jedi has opened here in New York. It's playing at the Lowe's Astor Plaza Theater, among other places.
Ernie, they started selling tickets here at the Lowe's Astor Plaza at 8:30 this morning, and even at that early hour, the line was 5 football fields long.
Here in Times Square, there were more than 500 people in line shortly after midnight. As the morning approached, the lines got much longer.
Waiting online that day was a lot of fun. I could overhear a lot of people talking about what they knew about the movie or about what they didn't know about the movie. At the time we were given or were able to purchase this was a movie program, and in it there are a few details that I think the first few parts of it talk about what the story is up until the point that Luke finds out what he has to do, which is actually a lot of information. I, in fact, saw people that I recognized walking past me. They didn't see me until they walked past to go stand in line because everybody was trying to get there as early as possible to see an early screening. In fact, 2 people behind me was the priest to our local parish. I'm able to spot myself in this clip that was shown on the news. That's me being let in to the theater there.
I loved it. I didn't have any problem with it at all. I saw that at the Keiths the first time. I thought it was a great film. The Ewoks at the time didn't bother me. They don't bother me now, but I'm, as an adult, you kind of see things a little differently. But I still love Return of the Jedi. It's just as an adult, you see more of the flaws of there really wasn't the script that there was for the first one. Like everything was so shrouded in secrecy that you could kind of see it on the screen sometimes because it feels like the actors weren't allowed to even kind of they had to create their own lines because it was so secretive. Because you feel a lot of that in the movie, but I still loved it. I mean, I had no problems with it at all.
And again, Return of the Jedi, just as good as A New Hope, maybe if not better. Most amazing space battle scenes I had ever seen. And it was just, I had to go see it.
I will never forget the reaction of the crowds that day. I mean, the cheers. Everybody cheered at the right moments. They gasped, they cried. At the very last few minutes of the film, when Darth Vader makes that huge sacrifice, the entire place was in an uproar. I mean, it was such a loud crowd reaction. I've never seen anything like that again. Everybody was on their feet and cheering for the heroic actions of a character who just a few years before they'd booed at. And here he was, making his big turn. That was truly astounding and still gets me every time I watch that scene.
But again, I mean, the introduction of the Emperor as the real puppet master of everything, and that Vader really was acting and pretending that he was in charge by himself in The Empire Strikes Back, but he was controlled by somebody else. It had a lot of significance to being of Luke redeeming his father, and it was kind of setting me on this path of trying to redeem what I found out about my father 6 months earlier. So that was what was the most important thing, finding and reconnecting with his dad.
Every time we would go see the film and that scene came, Mark would suddenly start to well up. I never really understood why at the time. I knew there had to be some kind of connection with his father, but it was a scene that totally hit home with him.
My father had passed away when I was 14 in 78, in between Star Wars and Empire. The nature of his passing was described to me as a certain way. 6 months before Return of the Jedi came out, I was told what really happened, which I'm not going into here. But it's not what I was told before. And I honestly, it was creepy that I went through my own version of, Ben, why didn't you tell me? So I was going through, Mom, why didn't you tell me? Luke finally drawing out this thing from Vader inside of himself that, okay, I killed billions of people with the Empire, but he, it's a story of redemption. It's not real. It's archetypal. It's broad strokes. It's a morality play, and it's a morality play.
And even Lucas said, this is really a story about father and son. That's really what this is. When you distill it down, it's about father and son. And that, it relates to me. And I think a lot of other people, who come from a divorce background, it's like, this is kind of a big deal. And so the son knew that the father still had good in him. Nobody else did, but he knew that there was still some good. And so, the son faced him. He could have killed him, but he didn't. But he put himself at risk, and he saved the father. I mean, that's the scene of the original trilogy that gets me every single time. When he took the mask off, he said, "You were right. You were right about me. Tell your sister that you were right." That amazing, just amazing. From a sci-fi flashy movie, it's just believing that someone still has good in them, even though after all they've done. It's just, that's deep, man. That's really deep.
I actually have a very deep connection to the scene in which Luke Skywalker speaks with Princess Leia and explains their secret to her. In it, he asks if she remembers her mother. And then he says, well, I don't have any memory of my mother. I never knew her. My own mother passed away when I was an infant, so I never knew her myself. And I never really thought about it much while I was growing up, but when Luke actually said those words, I never knew her, and at the time I was beginning to connect a lot with Luke, it hit home. But once it sunk in, I started to deal with those feelings of loss.
The themes of these movies are just deep, deep themes. It's just like A New Hope, Luke just needed himself and his beliefs. That's all he needed. He didn't need computers. He didn't need, these huge Star Destroyers. He just needed himself, to believe in himself and to believe in something out of himself. And he could win and he could be successful. And then Empire Strikes Back, then you have the sage, Yoda's wisdom. And, it echoed other truths in our life, religious or not. There were some deep truths that Yoda was trying to, give us. You got to do it, can't try. And then the importance of friends over Luke staying and finishing his training. I'm going to go save my friends. That's important. That's important to me. Friends are more important than this. And then Return of the Jedi, facing difficulty to rescue someone who's fallen.
I didn't feel disappointed, but I do remember things like when you thought all these other things that you imagined were going to happen and they didn't. I don't say I was disappointed. I just was like, oh, okay. But there were things you wanted to see more of. But again, it's only a 2 hour, 15-minute movie. You set up. You almost need another movie to do everything that you want to do. But Jedi, I loved it. I saw it so many times, and I remember I bought when it came out on video. I was a teenager. I was in high school, but I saved up the $86 or whatever it was to buy that VHS tape.
Star Wars for me has always been about the experience, the joy of finding out about it, the excitement of actually seeing it, the thrill of what was going to happen between the chapters, and the creativity that it inspired. I mean, it changed the movie industry. From then on, movies were always these big events that you'd go to, and it was a big thrill.
Like the movie that really kind of opened my mind to creatively thinking was Star Wars, was the original trilogy. Even if it was just like if I'm writing something that seemed Star Wars like, or it taught me a lot, just like story structure, just in terms of building suspense, comedy, so many aspects of what I ended up, things that I look for in other things come from that trilogy. So for me, it gave me a love of movies that I don't think I really had or appreciated or even realized.
Star Wars was truly a breath of fresh air in 1977. And I really think that movies were going down a path. It's post-apocalyptic, we're all going to die in some nuclear explosion, horrible thing. And Star Wars turned around and said, no, that there are brighter things in this existence, and that there are things to be hopeful for, and there are things worth fighting for and saving. And that's really, for me, after all this time, it was the ultimate message of the original 77 film.
It was something that we desperately needed in our time, and I'm really glad that I was alive during that time and that I got to experience it when it was that important.
It opened me to so many other different things. The influences of Star Wars, when you start to kind of dig into what did Lucas use? Kurosawa films, old westerns, The Searchers, Dune, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, all of these different things were little thumbprints into Star Wars. And without those other things, we would have never got Star Wars.
So, and I still love the movies. I mean, it's exciting to me anytime there's something new. What's happening now with the TV series, I mean, that's just, every time you see a new episode and you see like even the Jawa Sandcrawler, you remember that toy and you're like, oh, I wanted that toy to play with, and stuff like that. So all of that stuff, like that was, it's all melded together. The whole Star Wars experience is the toys, everything from the age of 7 all the way to now, it's all been Star Wars related. It's always still exciting to me to hear the name, to hear Star Wars, to hear anything being made, any news. It's never been something I've been sour about at all. Like everything is like, anytime I get something, it's like a new present, whether it's good or bad, I still enjoy it, and I still look forward to it.
I have 3 children of my own. The 22-year-old is 100% raised on this. 14-year-old has drifted into other things, but the almost 11-year-old, she blows my mind because we talk about it all the time now, and she recites the lines the way we did. She's like a sponge, and she just sits there and like goes through out of nowhere from one film to the other.
Literally, I saw this happen yesterday. I was walking to my car, and there was a family in front of me. And in that family, there was a little boy who was excitedly talking aloud about the fact that he was about to move to a new house. And he said to his father and to his mother, "I can't wait until we go to our new house so I can have that big screen TV and watch Star Wars all the time." And this was a little kid. He must have been 7 or 8. And that to me just proves that this movie will live on forever.